it's probably, in my view, a place where we see the most global alignment with regards to addressing climate change. And it's been very tough. It's very tough to get global alignment in this complex world that we live in. What we fundamentally all, I think, as society agree is that we have to address the climate change agenda. If not, the consequences are detrimental. And we're being asked very much by the young generation, we need to look after the planet. We need to look after it. And I think it's a fundamental shift in thinking, driven partly by the climate issues and then driven by society. Fundamentally to say that, yes, fossil fuels have served the world very well with regards to industrialization, transformation, pulled people out of poverty. It's the most low-cost, energy-intensive fuels you can get is from fossil fuels, but there is something detrimental and it needs to change. And I say that as an oil and gas professional, and I've spent my life in oil and gas, and I'm very proud of what it's done, but it needs to change. It's fundamental that it changes. Now, it's not something that is easy to change. Yeah. But once you get commitment to change, and the human race is incredible. It's incredible. Yeah. But you have to create that commitment and that joint commitment. So we have COP26 going on right now, constantly gets each time there is a COP26, 21, I can't get all my dates wrong, you watch the momentum build on this topic and the unification gets built on it. So now delivering it is not straightforward. We got some big goals out there, but changing is huge because all of us have to change. All of it. It's not going to sit there and go, policy is going to do it for you. You need policy changes. You need corporates investing in different things than they have in the past. But you also need every human being playing their part in it. So, because if we do nothing, we will have a problem, an unacceptable problem. And society decided it's unacceptable. So why does Fit for 55, Green Deal? This is all about policies and rules to drive the change. What you see in the corporate world is you set goals, you set targets, and you measure to them. Fit for 55 is the equivalent of the policy world and the rules world, right? And the regulatory side to say, okay, if we want to have 55% reduction in our GHG emissions by 2030, these are the things that we need to do. That's it. The EU is probably the most of all the different geographies and organizations and countries around the world. The EU is the most aggressive. Yeah, it is leading the way, but others are coming and it won't be on its own. Now, I believe for the EU, this makes a lot of sense for many reasons. First of all, climate change itself. But we have to remember the EU is a net importer of energy. Yeah? So it is reliant on its security of supply on others. So it makes sense that it wants to reduce that reliance on others by having its own. And if it gets it right, it can also be the first with regards to technologies to also make sure it has the technical capability, understands the technologies, and therefore the commercialization of it. So. But for every single person on here, yes, please understand the energy transition. Understand it and understand in the concept of climate change what you can do, because it's going to take all of us to change our habits, all of us. And there's a huge component around energy efficiency. This is probably the place where every single individual can play a part, because every single individual has an energy footprint. And how do you understand your energy footprint? And understanding your energy footprint, you can say, am I being as efficient with it as possible? Yeah. Am I able to be as efficient with my energy use as possible? Because I understand what the consequences of using that energy is. And this is, I think, really important. Driving. Do you know that actually if you drive at a certain speed, probably about 60 kilometers an hour, less than 60 miles an hour. So I've got that wrong. I have to make the conversion. Sorry, I've been in the US a bit long. Everything is miles. But if you actually drive a little slower, you will be better at conserve your energy use of the car. It's a combustion engine that brings CO2 with it. So if you actually are more efficient by driving a little slower, and by the way, it's also safer, which has good things. Gas is a very important part of the energy transition. It has a reliability. It has the lowest carbon footprint of the fossil fuels of that. And in Romania, we have some untapped and undeveloped resource. So it's very important for Romania. It's a very important, I think, economically for Romania as well. So I get lots of questions, and actually I was pleased I was on this European conference. I'm not sure everybody is necessarily always knows what's going on in Romania, so it's good to let people know. But I got a couple of questions actually, Adi, on Neptune Deep and what's happening with Neptune Deep. So I was pleased to hear that many people know about it. So where are we with regards to this natural resource? So just a little moment of, it is what we call in the technical world a discovered and appraised resource. In other words, they put the holes in the ground. We know roughly what size it is to be able to build a development plan. We have a development plan in place. So we actually know, okay, this is how many wells we would drill. This is the production rate we would get. So we have the development plan in place. Yeah. What we are waiting for is the legislation. What we see with it, the offshore law was passed in 2018. It was a very important piece of legislation and put some very important aspects in because they were not in place from a regulatory perspective. But what it did at the time was, first of all, the stability clause was not that strong. Why do we need a stability clause? What is it? Stability clause says, by the way, this is the law and it's not going to change. This is very important. This is a 4-year investment program, 4 years of investment, right? And what you want to know is that the terms for which you are developing this resource are not going to change the minute you turn the revenue line on. So that's the stability clause. And this is very important because obviously everyone says, okay, now that you spent all the money, you've got the revenue line, now we're going to change the fiscal terms on you. And you're like, no, otherwise I wouldn't have done the development. So this is an important part of it. The second very important part actually is the fiscal terms themselves. They are not competitive. What we see actually in Romania is the offshore terms are 5 times higher than the average in Europe. In the end, capital has to compete. It can go somewhere else in Europe. It can go somewhere else in the world. The economics don't work when you have such high tax take. Totally believe that actually, and you see this all over the world, when you develop a natural resource, that there is a piece that goes to the state. Totally understood. In the end, we come in and develop on behalf of the state because the leases are owned by the sovereign. They're owned by the country. Yeah, we come in and we develop them. We put the capital in, and then when we get the revenue line, the company gets some and the state gets some. But we need to make sure that balance is right so the project is economic. This is the piece of it with regards to competitive terms. And the third is the right to freely market the gas. This is in line with the EU and actually is making progress.